Okay, so I'm gonna make a separate video about how I'm gonna explain the technical designs behind my old company, JourneyRent. We are a company that's about to go defunct, and I would just like to describe the design philosophy between how we're doing things. So everything that we've done up till this point is based on our past failures. Um, we run a system that's based on WordPress and Laravel, and these are the main two things that we're actually running. Now, you can call this my portfolio, but I just like to explain from a DevOps perspective that how we're kind of like architectural perspective of how the system is designed. So when we inherited this system, everything essentially some services are running inside Docker, some are not. There Our public services are exposed directly to the internet, and essentially we also don't have backup and recovery. So what does that mean? Basically everything that we and basically it's running like a black box. So there is no observability. Everything is developed and ran on production, and there is no security. There is no security auditing. So if it works, it works. And I was digging into the MongoDB database and I saw some ransom notes. So I know for a fact that we've been hacked before, and there was a event that caused all of our data to basically you know just disappear. So at this point, when I inherited this technical infrastructure, I wanted to at least explain what I'm doing, right? Because this company is going away, so I don't mind showing some of the credentials and stuff like that, and I do have authorization to explain more about things, but at least this can build like a record of what I've done in the past and maybe provide some context. Okay, so for the most part, our infrastructure runs on PHP and Docker. Sorry, Docker. Let me pull out Docker here. So we have a Docker Compose file right here, and it defines 5 services. This Docker Compose file is a bit messy, but you'll get the idea pretty soon. But this is again, I'm engineering everything based on our past mistakes and basically making sure they fit a modern design. We have Nginx defined right here. We have PHP. We have MongoDB, MariaDB, and Cloudflare. In the past, we used to expose our services directly. Um, this is no more. We expose our services only. We only expose Nginx through Cloudflare, and I can see from your perspective how this can be overcomplicating, but essentially if you want to copy what we're doing, you just have to git pull our repository and then change a couple of environmental variables, and you also have to separately clone our projects. But normally, the standard way of doing things is to bake your code right into Docker image and just pull it on production. But in this sense, we're not doing that just because we still encounter issues that we have to firefight, and in the end, we still develop separately. But in the past, we used to develop on production, and it's a horrible practice. I agree with that. It's just at least we're making some compromises in between. So our services right here, they are being exposed using Cloudflare. Um, Cloudflare proxies only Nginx. In the past, we used to expose every service directly to our public internet, and I already said that earlier. In this case, we now just expose it directly using Cloudflare, and then we define a domain up here. We could have, terraformed and synced it, but we still need to change things, and I don't want the state to be messed up. In the end, I just stick to Cloudflare and change it on the dashboard. If I wanted to SSH into my machine, you already know this. You can. It's SSH is ran on Cloudflare tunnels, and then I have to do SSO and 2-factor so I can access this machine. Same with our backend management panels. We every panel here, like this is our stock management system. It's an old one. We never updated it, but here you can see like everything is locked behind Google. And we have a protection here, so this is for myself. It would allow me to connect to other machine, connect to our home server. I only locked it to our ASN. It's only temporary. I turn it off after I'm done. But here you can see like if you're logging into WordPress, you're doing things. Everything is going through Cloudflare. All the web servers, all the web traffic is going through Cloudflare. Now we do some automation, like image building. So when I push a new code, relating to PHP, it would automatically build it. I can not automatically. It would allow me to trigger an automation to build the PHP image. But in this case, since we don't bake in our configuration, our projects to PHP, we we just we built the environment for it. And you can see here I made it so that you can do our old engineer used to use a development system from PHP Docker, and it's he was running this on the production system, and it was just not secure. Now, PHP is the main thing that we're doing custom building with, but for the most part, it's still exposed by Nginx. And here, I actually put in a lot of work into Nginx. Is our Nginx projects, they are environmental variables based, just like Docker. Nginx's Docker image officially would allow you to do variable substitution directly based on what's running in the container environment. So that's why you see earlier there's so many environment variables inside our Docker container that you can define here, but it's all defined within the environmental variable that you can simply just rename the inf and Docker Compose up. So I can see how it's complicated, but at least our engineer understands it, and they don't have to make too many changes outside of tweaking some things and pulling the project. Now, for disaster recovery, I wrote like a small separate Docker Compose stack. There are three things: duplicate, DB backup, and Cloudflare tunnels. Now, what this simply does is DB backup. It's gonna make an image every. It's gonna make an image. It's gonna make a database dump for MySQL and MongoDB, and then duplicate will pick it up an hour later, and then it will back up my Google Drive. And then, the backup domain is also behind Google single sign-on. So you can see like everything is logged behind our single sign-on. And separately, I've deployed a monitoring stack myself. We monitor my SQL and Node Explorer. Here you can see like in Node we can see in my SQL I can see what traffic is picking up and find out when it's happening. And then here in Node Explorer you can see our server is barely being used, but for the most part, it's pretty secure, and our server also runs on RAID 1 redundancy, because in the past we had an engineer that the server was at his home and the server fell down and it blew up one of the SSDs, and that was it. There was no redundancy, there was no backup, and that was it. And so we had to pull our WordPress images from the Wayback Machine, and those are low resolution, low quality type photos, right? And we lost 1 year of customer data. So all of this allows us to back up our things. And in terms of development, what I really love is New Relic, because New Relic, it monitors our PHP environment and it allows us to see like specific traces. So you can see here our average trace duration is about 2 seconds. But if I were to click onto one of these analytics, it would show you exactly like, okay, let's look at this. I can see the Bedrock autoloader. I can see where it's running. I can see which line is running and how long it's taking. This essentially just tells me everything that I need to fix a problem. In the past we used to have issues where things are doing like n+1 queries, where if there's a page with 20 items, it would search the full table on the database 20 times. Now it would do pre-caching, right? Like if I were to see any issues with how database queries are constructed, I would just forward it to the engineer and tell them which exact file is doing this, and this makes our lives a lot easier. So honestly, our company is a e-commerce company based, and it's shutting down just because there are some difficulties with how things are managed and stuff like that. I won't get into that, but this is just the purely technical aspects of things. For WordPress, WordPress vanilla, when you install a plugin using WordPress, what happens is it directly pulls the plugin from WordPress.org. And here we disable, because we're already managing WordPress, but nothing is being synced. So what I did is I found this thing called WordPress Bedrock. I transformed, the design, where files are located, and I used dbeaver to search and replace and find things that needs to be renamed in order to transform our WordPress into Composer Managed. And here you can see our other developer has actually made a purely front-end project. So here it would basically it would show like the change logs, and then it would also show it would also fetch to the API. This is Laravel. Our API is based on Laravel, and here it would And how is this front end project deployed? It's also using Cloudflare pages, but now I transformed it into using Cloudflare workers. So even if we have server side rendering needs, it can be defined in Wrangler or stuff like that. Essentially, Cloudflare functions to help us develop or help us run server side functions. It's very convenient and it's very secure, and this alleviates the need for us to build front end projects locally, because we used to have Jenkins and just save them in a directory and serve it in Nginx, right? This is not happening anymore. Okay, let me see. I've showed you how our things are being built, Nginx, that too, SSH. So if we needed to update the server, I don't do this often, but you see here I can directly SSH in and run updates if I needed to. I can also execute composer commands right inside the container and manage the project. It's very convenient because at this point I don't have to manage WordPress plugins. Most WordPress plugins using the standard WordPress interface, right? I just run a composer update and all of this will be updated. Now my composer definitions is here. So here I can define all the composer plugins that I have. Um, Really, honestly, it's Laravel is so good, so friendly to developers. WordPress is not, but using WordPress Bedrock, we can manage our plugins and dependencies right from Composer JSON right here. And there are cases where some plugins our old engineer actually like he just forked it and changed it, and there is no like the Git. I can see the Git history, but I know they're changed sometimes. And in that case, I really have no way of tracking those changes, and sometimes these plugins that he forked is already gone. So what do we do now? In this case, I've manually find every single plugin that has not been modified, and I manually define them in Composer. And here, I wrote a small plugin. It's called PMSH. I can open source this for maybe all the projects I have done. What happens here is you can manually install plugins, right? But you can see which one is Composer managed. So if something is defined in Composer lock, it will know it's Composer based. If something is defined in Composer lock, and not in Git ignore, it would show Composer. If it's in Git ignore, it would show Composer. If it's not a Git ignore, but it's in Composer lock, we know it's Composer based updates. This is in if we need to change some plugins to conform to our systems. There are cases where some plugins are just they need to be retrofitted to fit our system. It's a maintenance burden, but it is what it is. And then some of this is just completely custom, hard forked stuff like that. We just have to use this to manage it. And then for security, this is a good part. Our WordPress, how security is managed is, first of all, Nginx is a web server, right? It proxies PHP. Since we're using WordPress Bedrock, the uploads folder is not allowed to run any PHP scripts. This would prevent people from uploading web shells into our server and executing it. So that's one security measure. The other one is using Cloudflare, right? Remember I mentioned earlier that all of our service definitions, they are exposed. Here, it would instead show that every service definition that we have is proxied or behind the public web. Here, since the only way for people to come into our network is through Cloudflare, and the only thing they can access is Nginx, that means our database is locked in our local network, and we can audit every single traffic being sent to us. Here you can see it allows me in Minnesota. I can define allow my traffic. After I'm done, I just click disable. This is, I just don't want to define my IP manually here. It's just me being lazy. I'm sorry about that. If we're running a more production system, I may change how things are managed, but it's just convenient for now. We also have like live traffic, right? So I can see there's some network traffic that's running directly into WordPress, and at least I've done all these measures of exposing our internet service, internet Nginx only through Cloudflare, and disallowing PHP execution on the uploads folder. Here, it's also on WordPress. It would show us which plugins has been modified, the login counts and suspicious logins. It's all like I would say very convenient and very secure. And yeah, I think that's about it. there are definitely a lot of stuff I haven't talked about. I think it's very likely I would be uploading all my work, as long as I have permission from our owner, because this code is not salvageable. It's specifically designed for WordPress. I mean, this infrastructure might be salvageable if we open source it, but my goal is, I've been in the open source contribution space. I just fix the issues I encounter, but there are cases where I can see this can help other people. So I'm gonna upload this. This can be my portfolio, but our company is just falling apart, not because of this technical design. It's just human factors, and I'm not good at managing people or overseeing stuff like that. And unfortunately, I spend a lot of time perfecting the system, and I feel very sad that everything is about to leave. But I still want to be able to leave a record, and just it's for myself, but also for others sometimes. So yeah, I hope you learn a thing or two. If you have any questions, just reach out. You might see this video from my LinkedIn or whatever. I don't know if this is allowed or this is cool to put on LinkedIn. Um, I'll put it on YouTube, and then this will coincide with me talking about JourneyRent, the company I used to work for. But for the most part, I put a lot of heart into and blood and sweat and tears into this. But maybe not tears. Only when I'm managing people. Blood and sweat for sure. Well, maybe not blood. Well, you never know. But it's just I spent about a year on this code base. This was messy. It was not manageable. It was not secure, and I've did everything I can to make sure that this code base is better. My portfolio or my education history is not conventional, so this might as well show, like, okay, at least this is the things that I can do and that I have done. I don't know. Maybe no one will see this video ever, but it's whatever. It's just maybe for my record keeping and just to. Oh yeah. All right. Anyways, that's really it. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to extend the time here.